Hello everybody, welcome to the Abbots Address. Today is Friday, October 28th, 2016. So the next prompt that came in was for me to talk a little bit about death and what happens when we die, and questions about how do I talk about this with my kids, and how do I answer when people from other religious traditions ask what's the dogma of our way or whatever, what's the dogma. So the first thing to say is that when it comes to dealing with, descriptions about what happens when you die, the Buddha himself didn't respond to those questions. He would remain silent. And, or he would give an analogy to say that, look, that's like, you've been hit with an arrow, and you're not willing to let the physician work with you until you know who shot the arrow and what color clothes they wore and what kind of stuff the arrow was made out of and what particular kind of feather was on that arrow, and all these kinds of questions. So for him, the question of, specifically exactly what's going to happen to me when I die, explain it so that I know, he didn't play that game. Okay, now in fairness, a lot of the Buddhist culture that accrued later started to pack a whole bunch of stuff on there, and it was basically a reincarnation / rebirth kind of culture, and so you can find references to rebirth in Buddhist literature, of course you can, but when it really came down, shoving come to push, it's not the way it works. In other words, most religious traditions claim certainty and thorough clarity on exactly what happens after you die. You're going to go to heaven, you're going to go to hell, it's going to be like this, it's going to be like that. So, one of the big, actually, case 28 or 9, something like that, there's a story when, who was it? Zengan, I think it was. Zengen, somebody. Zengen, I think I'll go with. He went with his teacher, Master Dogo. That one I'm sure of. And they went down to the village for a funeral. It was a wake. And let us say there's the home where the deceased family is there, and the priests show up, and then Dogo does his stuff, Master Dogo. And then in a private moment, when it was just Dogo and his Jisha, which is Zen, I think it's Zengan, anyway, the Jisha, or the attendant, asked the teacher, put his hand on the coffin, let's say, is this guy alive or is he dead? And then Master Dogo said, I won't say alive or dead. And then the Jisha said, well, why won't you say? And then the master said, I won't say. And then other people came in, and so they kind of cooled it, went on with their thing. And then as they were walking home together, back to the monastery or whatever, the temple, the student, again, was like, you need to tell me. Is it alive or is he dead? And again, the Master Dogo said, I won't say. I won't say. I'll never say. And then the student said, well, I'll punch you if you don't tell me. And then the master said, well, you might go ahead and throw a punch, but I'm still not going to say. And so the kid did this. Bang! He hit the teacher. Don't do that. But he hit the teacher, and the teacher still wouldn't say. He did say, it might be good for you to leave the monastery, but I think he said, if you do, it might cause a ruckus, so okay, hang out. But in any event, it was intense for this student, Zengen. I think it's Zengen. Anyway, it was intense for the student, and the teacher would not say alive or dead. And then, of course, it turns out that teacher, Master Dogo, passed away. He passed away. And then the student Zengen, had to go find another place to continue his training. And that happens sometimes. You know, the abbot passes away and there's not a successor there who's capable of continuing the training, and the students have to go and find another teacher. That happens sometimes. So this student Dogo, he went off and studied with Master Sekiso. And so when he was there, he brought up this exchange with his old teacher, Dogo, and said, look, you know, we were at this funeral doing our stuff, and I asked Master Dogo, alive or dead, and Dogo said he would, I won't say, and we got into it, but he still wouldn't say, and please give me teaching on this, because so the student had carried this around for a while, and there'd been some time passed, and then Sekiso says, go ahead and ask your question. And so the student says, was the alive or dead? And Sekiso says, I won't say. I won't say. And at that, the student had an awakening. Now, the difference between those two encounters was maturity in the training. Okay. So Zengun had been practicing for some time, and his practice was ripe enough then that when he got the same response, he was actually able to have a breakthrough. See? So the real answer to this question, no one can tell you and explain to you. And honestly, the people that might be completely certain and have absolute certainty that this is in fact the answer, whether that's an atheist answer or whether that's a classic sort of Tibetan reincarnation or rebirth kind of answer, or whatever the answer is, when they have certainty and they know, and it's all figured out by them and they've got it mapped out, they ain't got it. That is not the awakening of true awakening, in my view. No way. There's something here about not knowing, about not reducing everything to these categories and living out of this distinction, yes or no, up or down, positive, negative, alive, dead. So the real answer to this question comes, in my experience, it comes in koan study. Real, actual insight. That's where this thing gets resolved. That's where it got resolved for me. And there's nothing I can say or would say to try to explain to you what that personal insight into the matter of life and death is. First of all, it would be a huge disservice. And second of all, it can't possibly work. And third, it might actually get in the way of your own insight into the matter. So when it really comes down to it, I hope that this is a very irritating question for you. I hope this is a question that really drives you to sit, to resolve this yourself, so that you actually care about this enough that you're willing to go to sesshin, and you're willing to actually get into the sitting and really go for it. Because that, you can resolve this business. You can actually see through. You can actually see this great matter of life and death. It doesn't have to stay in just the realm of ideas and opinions and science or belief. It doesn't have to. You deserve better than that. You deserve to actually see for yourself in your own experience with the same eye that Master Dogo saw, that Master Sekiso saw, and that eventually Zengun saw as well. How about you? You need to see it. You need to see it for yourself. So when the Buddha is confronted with this thing, what he did is he talked to his students about practice. He practiced. And when this good student, very good student, a student who's taken their practice very seriously, confronted their teacher with a corpse right there, confronted the teacher, and the teacher gave him the direct answer. By the way, the teacher did not avoid the question. Important to know. When that enlightened master says, I won't say, that's not ducking the question, that's answering it directly. Can you see how? So may it, turn into more of an irritation for all of us, as long as that irritation drives us to sitting and drives us to study and to practice, real, true practice. Now, in terms of, how does that stack up against or with someone asking you, so what's the dogma of your religion? I don't function that way. I don't teach dogma. I'm not interested in dogma. I find the subject irritating. It's like, what's the unprovable map of the reality that I've got that you all believe in, or something like that? I don't go there. It's not useful, not relevant. So I wouldn't say there isn't any dogma. There's practice. We practice kindness. We practice compassion. We practice presence. We develop wisdom. We practice not causing harm. We practice developing ourselves. We practice actualizing good for all beings. That kind of stuff. Somebody just wants to have trading cards about different dogma and stuff. I don't know. We don't have a card to contribute there, I don't think. Mm-hmm. So, I won't say. But I will encourage. I'll definitely encourage you to take it up, to sit. And the real place this happens is koan study. If you're not in koan study, I would really recommend to you that you get to the place where you're in koan study. That's the track. Okay. So announcements. Only just sesshin, I think, is coming up next week. So we have sesshin starting next Wednesday night. I think, maybe Thursday night. I think it's Thursday night. Yeah, it's Thursday night. So sesshin starts on Thursday night next week. And it'll be Thursday night set up, and then all day Friday, all day Saturday. And then Sunday, of course, we have our closing experience, and then we get to the temple. Don't forget that we've got our ongoing Buddhist Studies class happening at 9:30 every Sunday. Come and participate, be a part of that. And then we've got the orientation stuff at 10:30 and sutra service at 11. It's great to practice with you all. I'll see you soon.